Hi, my name is Heather Grace MacKenzie and I'm a mindfulness and compassion teacher. And I wanted to share a little bit today about self-compassion, how it's helped me, and maybe fill you in a little bit about what it is. Often people have an understanding of what compassion is and aren't really very sure why self-compassion is so important. And I also wanted to share a practice that's really helped me called the self-compassion break. So, self-compassion, why? What is it? Why do we bother with it? I think most of us are taught to be kind to others, particularly at school. I remember I was taught that it was really important to be kind to others, but nobody ever really taught me that it was important to be kind to myself. And growing up, I really internalised a harsh, self-critical voice that I think is probably the voice of my mum. My inner critic thinks that she's keeping me in line, keeping me on track, not letting me slack. But many of us have this inner critic who really kicks us when we're already down. So learning to recognise that voice of self-criticism and change it up a bit, maybe choose a different inner voice, choosing an inner voice of kindness rather than criticism. The reason that it's so important to do that is that if we speak to ourselves really unkindly when we're already in the midst of a difficulty, then we're actually more likely to struggle to get back up after one of life's knocks. And so self-compassionate people are not only happier, but they're much more resilient. And so a little bit like Weebles, I love to talk about Weebles. I think they're a wonderful model for what mindfulness and self-compassion do for us, because Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. And when we practice mindfulness, we kind of move into Weeble mode, because usually in normal default mode of the way most human beings go through life is kind of all the thoughts burbling around up here in the head. And when we move into Weeble mode, we kind of drop our attention down into the body. And there's a lot of space here in the body, and not so much space in the head. So we kind of inhabit the whole of ourselves, and we do that with a curiosity and a kindness directed towards whatever it is that we find in our inner landscape. So mindfulness really turns up the volume of the inner voice that we have, that inner self-critical voice, and also it's a little bit like turning up the beam of the torchlight and learning to see what's driving us, the thoughts, the feelings, the physical sensations, and underlying all of that, the beliefs, the attitudes, expectations, assumptions, all of these things that are driving us without us truly realising. So Kristen Neff, who's one of the foremost researchers in self-compassion at the moment, she proposes that self-compassion consists of 3 elements. We've talked about 2 of them already. So self-kindness, so important to learn to treat ourselves like we would our best friend. And mindfulness, we need to be aware of the difficulty that we're having, the pain that we're experiencing, so that we can direct kindness towards it. And kindness directed towards a difficulty is compassion. And the 3rd element, really important element, is common humanity. So recognizing that being human is difficult, and We sometimes feel guilty for paying attention to the difficulties that we're experiencing and for giving them space and for directing kindness towards ourselves, because it almost feels selfish or self-indulgent when so many people around the world are really experiencing difficulties that are so horrendous compared to our difficulties. So common humanity really recognises that this being human is messy, it's difficult, we all suffer. And the self-kindness aspect really recognises that we deserve kindness ourselves as much as any other human being, as much as any other being on the planet. Why is it that we often think that we're less deserving than others, that we should focus our attention on others? Actually, when we give ourselves some soothing, some attention, some kindness, we tend to that inner well of well-being, that the inner resource of compassion and kindness, loving kindness, and we have so much more to give others. So practicing self-compassion is probably one of the greatest gifts that we could possibly give to those around us. So how do we practice self-compassion? There are so many ways, but I wanted to share with you the one practice that I have found incredibly helpful in my own life. It's been a complete game changer. It's called the Self-Compassion Break. It's a practice that was developed by Kristen, Neff and Christopher Germer, who created the Mindful Self-Compassion training. And it has 3 steps. Super simple. Number 1, recognizing this is a moment of difficulty, and maybe placing a hand over the chest, the center of the chest, or maybe just placing one hand on the other hand if that feels soothing. Perhaps taking a breath and just noticing this is a moment of difficulty. And step 2, the aspect of common humanity, reminding ourselves that we're not alone. Whatever we're feeling, whatever we're experiencing right now, there are over 7 billion people on the planet, and so very many people right now will be feeling the same way, or at least very similar. And then step 3 is really asking ourselves, what does kindness look like in this moment? How may I be kind to myself? What is kind? What does it look like? And it's a kindness that is in line with our long-term well-being. So it's not a short-term, I think it would be really kind to myself to have that whole cake that's sitting in the fridge right now, or that whole tub of ice cream. So whilst that might be momentarily comforting, it might then be followed by an awful lot of feelings of guilt, etc. And we don't need to do that to ourselves. Kindness that's in line with our long-term well-being. So that's it. The self-compassion break. 3 steps. Number 1, noticing that something difficult is arising in your experience, a difficult thought or a difficult feeling, difficult physical sensation, and reminding yourself that you're not alone. Difficulties are part of everyone's experience, and then asking yourself, what does kindness look like right now? So I hope that you've enjoyed this short video. If you'd like to connect and receive the newsletter from my website, please do come along to heathergrace.co.uk. And thank you for watching.